So basically, today is Purity is Precious 5th year anniversary. I am ecstatic about where we are today. I'm ecstatic about what's going on with the organization and where we are heading in regards to the organization as far as that is concerned. So once again, I am Precious Joy, the founder of Purity is Precious. So I want to talk about some things with you all today, some things that I've learned over the last 5 years of running this organization, and I wanted to touch bases with you all about some things, mainly because on the 5th year, we all know in a spiritual context, the number 5 is the number of grace, of God's grace. And so I am ecstatic about what God is going to do with the organization and where we are going and what is the and where we're heading. And so let me start off first, letting you all know the deal and the gist. Purity is Precious is not, and I repeat, it is not a purity culture group, okay? It is not about us bashing people into purity and into abstaining from sexual activities or sexual immorality. Is nothing like that, right? We do teach about the value of your body, because if and we do target teen girls to help them to understand the importance of what's between their legs, the importance of what's in their heart, the importance of what's in their mind, the importance of what's in their emotions, which can oftentimes cause you to want to abstain in sexual activities before you're ready for it. And we do teach that we want you all to really abstain from sex until marriage, right? Yes, that is the ultimate goal. However, this is not a if you do it, you're going to hell. This is not if you choose to if you don't save yourself, you're less than, or you're not worthy, or you're not qualified, or any of those things. And so I want for you all to understand my heart in regards to Purity is Precious. There is so much that I've learned over the last 5 years. And I want to share with you all some of the things that I've learned, which were some things that I had to come to grips with, even in my own personal walk and even in my own personal journey. And so that's what I'm here to do today. I'm excited about 5 years in this organization, because who would have knew that I would have made it this far, for one, and who would have knew that we would be here in this very place, so that I could still be in a position where I'm ready to definitely help you all and help other teen girls and younger girls to be able to make decisions in regards to their sexual walks, in regards to their purity. So let me tell you 5 things that I've learned, and these were 5 things that I needed grace in, and that I think that if you give yourself grace in these 5 different things, that you would not have as hard of a problem as what I've had, or as big of a struggle as what I've had, right? And so my goal is to always give you all information and to be transparent and vulnerable with you all, so that you never feel like you're in this journey alone, right? Because I know how that feels, to feel like I'm in this journey by myself. I don't have many friends that are virgins, or that are abstaining from sex or whatnot, anything of that. So there are many days when I know I'm alone by myself in it, and there are many days when I don't have anyone that I can talk to that will be honest with me or give me the real, without something overly religious or whatever that they may have heard someone else say. And so I want to be the person that gives you the upfront and the real and the gist or whatnot, so that you know exactly what it is that you're walking into, and you are not alone in this particular journey. And so um, I target teen girls for the most part, but with what I'm going to share today, I'm going to be honest with you, it can go for teen girls, or it can help prepare teen girls or whatnot, but it can also go for like the lady today, whoever you are or whatnot, that's walking in purity, or that's trying to walk in purity or whatnot. This could really be beneficial, and it can help you. And so the first thing that I want to talk about in regards to one of the graces that I had to learn and give myself is that purity does not guarantee you promotion, advancement, or place you above the rest. Purity does not guarantee you promotion, advancement, or place you above the rest. I think that a lot of times people may think that people that are virgins, or that is abstaining, or whatever it may be, celibate or whatever it may be, think that we're better, and we think that we are above, and we think that we are more valuable. And yet I can honestly attest to the fact that there can be some we don't necessarily think or feel that way, but I can attest to the fact that there are times and there will be moments where you will think that you should have something, or that something should have been given to you because of your walk and because of your journey. And so when you have those type of mindsets, you're going to find yourself in positions where you're going to be highly disappointed, right? And so for me personally, I did at one point in time, I had this belief that since I was doing it, quote unquote, right, that God should bless me. And I was super wrong. I was super wrong to have a mentality that, okay, sis over here is steady sleeping around or steady falling into what the church deems as sexual sin. However, I'm not doing that. So I should be blessed. I should have God's favor. I should have God's backing. He should see me before he sees her. He should promote me before he promotes her. I should receive all of these different accolades or whatnot because I'm not doing what she's doing. And the reality is that that's not how God operates. That's not how things should be. That's not how things are going to be. And I was up for a rude awakening because I literally did have that type of mindset at a particular time. Now it was interesting for me because it was one of those situations and moments where it was unbalanced in my personal life, where I didn't think I was better, but I didn't think that we were on the same level. And I don't necessarily, even still today, I still don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. But it's like I'm not better, but I'm not less than either. And we're still not necessarily equal. So I think that it's important for us to always be in our own playing fields and in our own to be our own competition versus comparing yourself to anyone else. And that's what people will tell you. They will be like, you're not supposed to compare yourself to anyone, compare your journey, compare your story, compare your walk, your purity walk to anyone else. And I believe that that's 100% true. And so, because if you do that and you see something that you think that someone else have that you should have, you're going to be highly disappointed and you're going to feel like, well, what about me? And so for me, it was very important that I came to the realization that because I am quote unquote doing it right, it does not put me into a place where God should bless me before he bless anyone else. It does not put me in a place where I should receive something, where I should receive marriage before the sis that was not abstaining, or before the sis that had no intentions in abstaining. It means that I just was more graced in that area than what she was. That's it. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. It's nothing more to it, it's nothing less of it or whatnot. It's just that you have a little bit more grace. It's just that God may have called you to that particular arena. And maybe the other person is not called to that particular arena to abstain and to not give herself and to not necessarily walk into purity or whatever it may be. It is okay. And I had to come to that realization, because had I not, I would have been very much so disappointed than what I already was. So let's keep in mind that number one is purity does not guarantee you promotion, advancement, or place you above the rest. We are all on our own path, on our own journey, and we have to be okay with that. Another thing that purity will do is highlight character flaws within you that stem from entitlement. This still boils back to like the first one that I just talked about. When you are someone that is abstaining from purity, it's not the easiest thing to do. And I think that a lot of times people underestimate the type of discipline and the type of restraints that you have to be able to walk in this and to be able to do this. And it used to frustrate me when I felt like people was underestimating my journey. It frustrated me when I felt like I was not receiving what I thought I was supposed to have had by now. Like there are a lot of things in my life that I could have pinpointed and said, I should have this by now, this by now, this by now, this by now, because I didn't do what this person did, this person did, this person did, that person did. But the reality is that all it did was highlight character flaws in my own personal life that needed to be dealt with. And those character flaws were envy, those character flaws were jealousy, those character flaws was insecurity, those character flaws were lack of contentment, unforgiveness, those character flaws were bitterness. If you are someone that is literally trying to do this thing, trying to walk right and trying to be walk into the realm of purity and trying to be pure emotionally, mentally, and physically, then it's going to highlight different things in you, such as character flaws that you need to pay attention to, that you need to address, that you need to be open to, that you need to be mindful to. And as you're mindful to those things, then you can start to peel back the layers as to why they are even there and why they even exist and what is their purpose that they came to serve. And so for me, I struggled with that thing with entitlement. I felt like I was deserving of X, Y, and Z. I felt like I should have been had marriage by a certain age. I felt like I should have been um, extremely successful by the time I hit 35, and I'll be 35 in the matter of in about 6 months or whatnot. So, but I felt like I should have all these things because I was not out there like that. I was not out there like other women. I was not. I prided myself on carrying myself a certain way and carrying myself in a certain as a certain stature so that I don't necessarily fit in with the rest or look like the rest. But the reality is, I was operating out of a realm of entitlement that made me feel like because I was still keeping myself, I should have something more than what someone else has. And that was something that I had to deal with because it was showing that there were multiple character flaws within me that needed to be healed. And so the third thing that I wanted to talk about, the third thing that you need to give yourself grace on so that you can sustain your purity is that purity is not just sexual. In order to abstain and make sound decisions, you must address physical, mental, and emotional traumas to establish a mental and emotional purity. So, too many times we are always just trying to continue on with the flow of life because we are taught to just pull it together and keep moving forward and um, just to give it to God and keep going and don't worry about it or whatnot. And yes, we are to give it to God, and yes, we are to move forward. However, there does come a time when we need to take some time and sit down and take inventory of what's really happening within us, right? So we need to look at the things that we're going through, whether or not there is a certain realm of trauma that we experience, whether it was at work or maybe we experienced the level of trauma in a certain relationship that we thought was going down the road of longevity, of long term, or whatnot, and yet we didn't. It blew up in our face, or whatever it may have been. There is time frames where we have to start to look at some things that we've experienced, that we walked through, and we have to look at them internally because that brings us to a place where we can come to a place of sobriety within our emotions instead of us steady trying to act like, oh, it'll go away. The truth of the matter is that it won't go away, and it does not go away, and it does not go away until we actually become bold enough to face it and to confront what we've done, what we said, what happened, what our part in the experience we played, and take ownership of it all so that we can start to actually unravel the very things that have held us captive in a certain situation or in a certain space. And so when we are not emotionally whole, or when we're not mentally whole, we begin to shortchange ourselves in certain situations and in certain experiences because we begin to talk ourselves up out of it. We don't think that we're good enough. We don't think that we're qualified enough. We think that our past will come up and pull the rug right from underneath us. We think that so many different things will happen, and that's mainly because is mainly because we did not properly take a microscope to those different emotions that we were struggling with so that we can get to a place where we are healed, so that we can get to a place where we are able to even abstain from from uh sexual from sexual gratification outside of the context of a marriage, should I say. So it comes to that place where we're trying to make logical decisions, but if we are not in a place where we confront those things and where we confront our mindsets and where we confront our emotions that are toxic, we will begin to act out in a sexual context or whatnot that goes against what we were originally trying to do in regards to sustaining our purity. And so I had to realize that purity is not just sexual. Purity is not just something where, and I think that what trips me out too as well is that when I talk to people, even about my organization and what I do, a lot of times people think that purity is just equates only to sexuality, and I have to always bring them up to speed and say, no, ma'am. Well, no, sir. Purity is emotional as well. It's emotional, it's mental. There are multiple aspects to this thing, and it is extremely broad. And for us to just think that that purity is only sexual, it goes to show how much we have numbed ourselves to our own emotions and to our own and to the possibility of there being other avenues to the word of purity. So that's one of the things that I wanted to definitely touch on is that purity is not just sexual. You have to be able to make in order to be able to abstain, you have to be able to make sound decisions, and you must address the very thing that haunts you, which is your past, which is the things which is certain environments, certain experiences and traumas. You have to be willing to go ahead and confront those things head on. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is the posture of sexual purity must be established for you and only you. The posture of sexual purity must be established for you and only you. Now, this part is extremely important, and it's extremely important because this is something that I have recently just had to walk through. And I recently was having this internal war within myself, whereas I was angry, I was frustrated, I was hurt, and I was I probably was starting to get a little bit bitter. And I hit that phase, and I would say I probably hit this phase like about 2 months ago. And it still dwindled on out. Like it really hit peak maybe 2 months ago. But if I would be honest with you all, I still dabbled in it last month sometime or whatnot. And I'm saying that your stance and your sexual purity has to be for you and only you, because people change. And one of the things that I noticed is that for me personally, and this is my own personal experience, is that I hit a brick wall over the last 2 months because I realized that me being on this journey of sexual purity, I did not necessarily do it for me. I was doing it because I wanted to please my parents, my mother, I was raised and born a Christian, of course. And so I wanted to please her. I wanted to win favor with God. And I literally thought that this is what Christians do. Or, and it's not just Christians in general, it is literally every religion and every religion. They all have it where they have that thing where it's like, oh, make sure that you are keeping yourself and abstaining from sex until marriage and the whole nine, which is why I understand why so many people have issues with purity culture. And so I never want to, neglect the fact that we have all been taught some toxic, um, something toxic in regards to abstaining or whatnot from sex and everything like that or whatever. But I come to realize that I had to get to a place where my purity was being done for me and not for them. and and not even for God, literally. And I know that that might be shocking. That part alone just might be shocking, but here's what I come up with. My purity had to be for me. I had to been doing this for me because I realized that as people change and as things grow, and we all know that even in the church or whatnot, rules change depending upon who's in the hot seat, and rules change depending upon what done went down, and rules change depending upon who they want to favor. We get that, but everyone else could possibly get away with what you can't get away with. And I think that I was feeling like I have done this, not for me, but because I wanted to win the favor of God. I did it to please my mom. I did it for the church. And yet the rules have all of a sudden changed. Now, the good thing is that God never changes, right? We know that He doesn't change. He is set and solid in His views, He is set and solid in His word. He is set and solid. But sometimes perspectives change even in parents. Sometimes perspectives change even in as we know, like I said earlier, the rules could change even in the church depending upon who's in the hot seat or whatever. However, what what is the truth of the matter is that there is always grace. And I'm not saying this to give anybody the green light to go out and to do whatever it is that they want to do or to sleep around or whatever it may be. I'm being honest because this was something that I had to face myself. But what I realized is that whether I choose to abstain or not, God is still going to love me regardless. He is not going to be, he is not going to hate me. He is not going to fall out of love with me. He is not going to discard me. He is not going to forget about me. He is not going to say that I'm no longer enough. He is not going to do any of those things. People will, because people is fickle. But because God is all forgiving, He will forgive. And He will allow for you to get back up and try again. And He will be the one that you can always come to and pour out your heart to. So yes, He honors those that adheres to His promise, but He's not going to love you any less. He's not going to love you any less. And I've come to the place where I started to realize, like, I've been doing this thing for all the wrong people. I haven't been doing it for me. And I felt like at one point in time that I was actually in too deep to mess up now. And I remember that that was what I was saying to my mom, and that was what I was saying to a couple other people. I was like, I feel like I'm in too deep now. And you all might be like, well, what do you mean that you're in too deep or whatnot? It's a decision. Well, for one, I have a whole organization that God gave me. So now I'm in too deep. For two, it's just more so for me, like, I don't necessarily move now off of emotions when it boils down to men or just men or whatnot. Now I feel like I don't have to look at you, or I don't have to jump in the bed with you to tell that you stuck on stupid, to tell that this relationship ain't gonna go far, to tell that you're not the one for my future. Now, when I look at a certain man, or when I'm looking at something and we're trying to decide if this is going to be something, I ask myself one question. I ask myself one question. And my one question is he deserving of me? And when I make my decision on whether or not I think he is deserving of me, that will let me know whether or not we're going to continue a relationship or not. I might let you take me out and wine and dine me, but if I don't feel like you're deserving of me, there is no future here, period. And I'm okay with that. So that lets me know right off the back, I'm not going to sleep with you. That lets me know right off the back that that is not going to go far. So I don't need to invest my heart. I don't need to invest my emotions. I just need to be okay with having you as a male friend. And so when you are when you are making a decision to be sexually pure, I would recommend, and I would recommend that you make this decision younger than later, to decide who you are doing it for. If you're going to go on this journey, if you're going to actually move about it, who are you doing it for? That's important. And I would say if it's for anyone else outside of you, you might want to reconsider why you're even doing it. If it's for anyone else outside of you, you might want to reconsider why you're even doing it. And don't get me wrong, you can do it for God as well, but you need to make sure that you right on the same line as how you want to of you trying to do it for God too. So I would not say do it for God and then you down here. I would say do it with God and do it for you. And make sure y'all on the same playing field in regards to why you're doing it. Because if you're not, you're going to be tormented with your decision. And I am definitely talking from experience. Um, and the last thing that I really want you to know is that, well, this is not the last thing. The last thing for this point in regards to who you're going to do it for is that this will be a lonely road. And you will have days where you don't have no one to talk to. There will be no one to talk to. And so you need to know and be as resolved as possible in regards to why you started in the first place. There are going to be time frames where you want to talk to someone about your struggle or where you want to share what you're going through or how you feel, and yet there is no one you can call because guess what? All of your other friends are being promiscuous. All of your other friends are going to tell you something religious or that don't make sense or something that they not even abiding by or hearing by themselves. All of your other friends are going to act like, oh girl, you just might as well do you and get you some and a whole nine. You gonna have to know what you in this thing for. You got to know why you started. You got to know why you started. You got to know if you feel like this is something that you can endure in because this is not an easy walk. It is not an easy walk or for the faint of heart. And a lot of times people who do abstain are underestimated in regards to what it takes. They are underestimated. And it becomes to open up your heart to about it. So, and the final thing is number 5 is purity requires absolute surrender. Even though you don't do it, even though you're doing it for yourself and no one else, the reality is that you cannot do it without God. So that's why I said actually you can have you up here and God up here. Y'all got to be on the same playing field because it do require absolute surrender. One of the things that I do daily or that I do every morning when I spend time with God or whatnot is that I will tell God, I surrender my virginity to you. I surrender my day to you. I surrender purity is precious to you. I surrender a virgin and miserable to you, my book. I surrender the different things to God daily. But I always make sure that I surrender my virginity to God because I can't do it by myself. And because this thing is going to require for you to come into a place of absolute surrender, you need to know exactly how to actually be able to surrender those parts of you that are craving for male affirmation, that are craving for attention, that is craving for um, attention because there is some form of brokenness internally, attention because there is some form of uncertainty internally, some attention because you don't know or you think that this is how you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to project or how you're supposed to carry yourself because of what we see daily on TV and on these different housewife shows. It is so much that you're faced against and that you're up against that you need to be able to have to be able to know how to fully surrender this stuff, how to fully give it over to God. Because if you are in a place where you don't know how to really surrender, if you're in a place where you don't know what to surrender, and to me, honestly, what to surrender is what you feel, especially if it's coming from a place where it's a broken place. And so I had to learn how to surrender the things that I can't change. I had to learn how to surrender the things that are not for me, that I wish was for me. I had to learn how to surrender the things that worked against the call and the purpose on my life that I actually held tightly to. So surrender is something that we have to get to a place where we understand and that we nurture and that we learn how to do an exchange between you and God in regards to your purity is concerned. Exchange that in between you and God so that you can actually be okay and be at a place where you know that you made the right decision for your life, that you know you made the right decision to abstain and to abstain from sex outside the context of marriage. Because here's the reality: you don't have to abstain from sex outside of marriage. God gives us all choices, right? However, our choices do come with consequences. And I don't know about you, I don't want to be a baby mama. I want to have children, yes, but I would rather be the mother of his child versus his baby mama. I would rather be the mother of his children versus his baby mama. That's just me, though. So that is just me, though. So this is why I constantly had to really look deep inside of myself and make some decisions. This is why I had to make a choice on what it is that I wanted to to do in regards to my journey. This is what I did to make sure that I was making the right decision for my journey in regards to purity, as well as my journey in regards to the organization. Because a lot of the things that happen with the organization is definitely on my shoulders. Will there be a purity is precious if I fall off and jack up? If I start sleeping with a whole bunch of men, will there be a purity is precious? God forgive me, absolutely. But what happens to those that are called to the organization? What happened to the teen girls that were looking for an example? What happened to the other women that needed someone to be raw and honest, such as myself? Now, I know some of the things that I said is going to tickle the mind. It's going to make you think. It's going to make you feel like, I can't believe she said that. I don't know what she mean by that or whatnot. But as you begin to grow and walk in this journey, you will begin to understand that a lot of the stuff that I've said is actually real things that we don't get and that we are not taught and that people don't speak about, especially in the church context, in the Christian context. And I'm gonna be honest, I hate to talk about certain things in regards to the church context, but there are so many things that we don't talk about, that we don't discuss, that we don't address, that is not brought to the forefront because we're trying to create and keep an image that really does not even exist. I like to say that a lot of times we live in lies. And that's exactly how I feel about some things that I've seen and witnessed in the church or whatnot, as well as outside of it. But the reality is that we all have been in a place where we have lived in lies to just be able to cope, to be able to save face, to be able to act as if all is well, even when it is the furthest thing from the truth. My journey for these last 5 years, I held myself and I said all is well, and many a times it was the furthest thing from the truth. So when I do these lives on Wednesdays, I'm going to do them because I want to bring you all truth. I want to bring you all real experiences that I've experienced and that I've walked through. It is never to put anything out there negative about God, about the church, about purity, anything like that. But this is why I said this is not a purity culture. You going to hell if you do it type of organization or company or whatever. This is not what this is. This is just me being upfront and honest because we are having purity chats. We are having purity chats, and we're going to be talking about daughters arise. Because as we have these purity chats, we got to begin to rise up and know who we are and why we are, and understand our value and understand what we bring to the table, what we bring into certain rooms and environments. All of that plays a huge part in what you're called to do in your purity, in your mental purity, in your emotional purity, in your sexual purity. All of that plays a part. So that's all I have for today, y'all. I was honestly trying to make this 20 minutes, but it turned out longer than that. So, but you have your top 5 things from me, so I will read them off one more time to you. Number 1 was purity does not guarantee you promotion, advancement, or place you above the rest. Number 2 was purity will highlight character flaws within you that stem from entitlement. Number 3 was purity is just not sexual. In order to abstain and make sound decisions, you must address physical, mental, and emotional traumas to establish a healthy mental and emotional purity. Number 4 is the posture of sexual purity must be established for you and only you. And number 5 was purity requires absolute surrender, even though you do it for you. You cannot do it without God. So that is our purity chats for today. And this is once again the 5th year anniversary. The 5th year anniversary of Purity is Precious. And I know that God has given us a lot of grace for where He wants to take us. But that is it, you all. I'm going to leave you all. Be sure to like the video and also to subscribe to the Purity is Precious page and follow me, Precious Joy, on Instagram at Purity is Precious. So I'm going to sign out, but I am Precious Joy, the founder of Purity is Precious, and be back here this Friday as I will be going live with my mother, Doris Divine, and we will be talking mother daughter unfiltered. So it's so much going on. If you don't know what we all do, just check out the Purity is Precious page and you will see there. But I'm going to sign out, and you all have a wonderful day.